Hello there, and welcome back to Bedtime Science. I'm really glad you're here tonight. There is something quietly perfect about learning the science of sleep while drifting toward it. You are, right now, approaching the very thing we are about to explore, the border between wakefulness and unconsciousness, the threshold where the conscious mind begins to soften and the brain starts doing the work that only the sleeping brain can do. And the more you understand about what that work actually is, the more natural it becomes to trust it. Sleep is not the absence of life. It is one of the most biologically active states the body and brain ever enter. The sleeping brain is not dark and still. It is processing, consolidating, clearing, repairing, rehearsing, and reorganizing in ways that are essential to everything the waking mind does. Without adequate sleep, cognition deteriorates, emotion becomes more reactive, immune defenses weaken, cardiovascular strain increases, and metabolic systems lose some of their precision. With adequate sleep, the brain consolidates the memories of the day, processes emotional experience, clears metabolic waste, regulates hormones, calibrates the immune system, and prepares the entire organism for another cycle of waking life. Tonight we move through that hidden work slowly, the stages of sleep, the circadian clock, dreams, memory, the immune system, sleep disorders, the history of sleep research, and the still unsolved question of why consciousness disappears each night and returns each morning as if from nowhere. Sleep-like states have been found across an astonishing range of animals with nervous systems, from mammals and birds to fruit flies, nematode worms, and even jellyfish, animals with nervous systems so simple that they have no brain in the vertebrate sense. Scientists are careful with the word universal because sleep in such distant creatures is not always identical to human sleep. But the recurring pattern is striking: reduced responsiveness, a characteristic resting posture or state, regulation by internal timing, and a rebound after deprivation. The fact that animals repeatedly give up full responsiveness to sleep, even when that creates vulnerability, strongly suggests that sleep serves fundamental biological functions that evolved very early in animal life. If sleep were only passive rest, natural selection might have found easier ways to conserve energy without making the organism so unavailable to the world. Instead, again and again, life has kept sleep, or something very much like it, because the cost of not sleeping appears to be greater than the risk of sleep itself. Sleep in humans is not a single uniform state, but a complex cycling process organized into distinct stages with different neural, physiological, and phenomenological properties. Modern sleep science recognizes two broad categories of sleep: non-rapid eye movement sleep, abbreviated as NREM, and rapid eye movement sleep, abbreviated as REM. NREM sleep is further divided into three stages. Stage 1 NREM is the lightest sleep, a brief transitional stage lasting only a few minutes. Stage 2 NREM is a deeper sleep characterized by specific electroencephalographic features, including sleep spindles and K-complexes. Stage 3 NREM is the deepest sleep, characterized by slow, high-amplitude delta waves in the electroencephalogram, and also called slow-wave sleep or deep sleep. REM sleep is a physiologically distinct state characterized by rapid eye movements, near total skeletal muscle paralysis, and a brain activity pattern resembling waking more than it resembles deep sleep. A healthy adult cycles through these stages approximately 4 to 6 times per night, with each cycle lasting approximately 90 minutes, and with the proportion of time spent in deep NREM sleep gradually decreasing and the proportion of time in REM sleep gradually increasing as the night progresses. The architecture of sleep across the night reflects the different functions that different sleep stages serve, timed to the physiological needs of the system. The first half of the night is dominated by slow-wave sleep, the deepest, most physiologically restorative sleep stage, during which growth hormone is secreted at its peak levels, tissue repair occurs, and the immune system is particularly active. The second half of the night is dominated by REM sleep, the emotionally rich, dream-dense, cognitively important stage during which memory consolidation for emotionally significant material, creative problem-solving, and the processing of novel information are thought to be particularly supported. This temporal organization means that consistently waking very early, truncating the second half of the night, disproportionately reduces the REM-rich portion of sleep. Consistently shortening the early part of the night or fragmenting the first sleep cycles can interfere more with the slow-wave sleep that is concentrated early. The point is not that every person must sleep on the same clock, but that duration, timing, and continuity all matter because the stages are not distributed evenly across the night. The electroencephalogram, or EEG, has been the primary tool of sleep science since Hans Berger first recorded brain electrical activity from scalp electrodes in 1929. The EEG measures the summed electrical activity of billions of neurons, recorded as voltage fluctuations at electrodes placed on the scalp. Different sleep stages produce distinctive EEG signatures that are now recognized worldwide in sleep clinics and research laboratories. Waking EEG shows fast, low-amplitude activity reflecting the diverse, unsynchronized firing of neurons in different brain regions processing different information simultaneously. Stage 1N, REM, shows slow eye movements and a slowing of the EEG. Stage 2N, REM, introduces sleep spindles, brief bursts of oscillatory activity, typically in the range of roughly 11 to 16 Hz and often centered around 12 to 14 Hz, lasting about half a second to 2 seconds, generated by circuits between the thalamus and the cortex and K complexes. Large slow waves often triggered by external stimuli. Stage 3N, REM, shows the slow, high-amplitude delta oscillations of deep sleep. REM sleep shows a fast, low-amplitude EEG pattern called desynchronized EEG, resembling waking activity, alongside the characteristic rapid eye movements recorded by electrodes near the eyes and the absence of muscle tone recorded in the chin muscles. Sleep spindles, those bursts of oscillatory activity in stage 2N REM, are now understood to play a specific and important role in memory consolidation. Research has found that sleep spindle density, the number of spindles per unit time during NREM sleep, is correlated with declarative memory performance the following day. People who generate more sleep spindles during the night following a learning session show better retention of the learned material. Sleep spindles appear to facilitate the transfer of newly encoded memories from the hippocampus, where they are initially stored in a rapid but fragile form, to the neocortex, where they are integrated into long-term storage in a more stable and broadly distributed form. This hippocampal neocortical dialogue, mediated in part by sleep spindles and their interaction with the slower hippocampal sharp wave ripples and cortical slow oscillations, is one of the better characterized molecular and circuit-level mechanisms of sleep-dependent memory consolidation. Slow-wave sleep is the deepest and most restorative stage of sleep, and its most prominent feature, the slow oscillation, has been intensely studied for its role in memory consolidation and neural maintenance. The slow oscillation is a recurring cycle between a down state, in which neurons in the cortex are relatively hyperpolarized and electrically quiet, and an up state, in which neurons fire actively at rates approaching waking levels. These oscillations occur at approximately 0.5 to 1 Hz, once every 1 to 2 seconds, and are synchronized across large areas of the cortex. During the up states, the cortex is briefly reactivated, and this reactivation has been shown in animal experiments to coincide with the replay of neural activity sequences associated with waking experience. The brain appears to be running through recordings of waking experiences during these brief windows of deep sleep activity. The slow oscillation provides a temporal framework within which sleep spindles and hippocampal sharp wave ripples are coordinated, creating a hierarchy of nested oscillations that may orchestrate the transfer of information from short-term to long-term memory storage. The discovery of REM sleep in 1953 by Eugene Aserinsky and Nathaniel Kleitman at the University of Chicago was one of the most important moments in the history of neuroscience. Aserinsky, then a graduate student, noticed that sleeping subjects showed periodic bursts of rapid eye movement under their closed lids, and the EEG recorded during these periods looked nothing like the slow waves of deep sleep. It looked like the EEG of a waking person. When subjects were awakened from REM sleep, they reported vivid dreams approximately 80% of the time. The discovery not only established a physiological correlate of dreaming, but revealed that sleep was not a single passive state, but a complex active process with multiple distinct stages, transforming how scientists and clinicians understood and studied it. Kleitman, already an established sleep researcher who had done foundational work on the circadian rhythm, recognized the significance of the finding and supported its publication, and the resulting paper in Science in 1953 founded the modern scientific study of sleep and dreams. The circadian rhythm is the approximately 24-hour internal clock that regulates the timing of sleep and waking, along with dozens of other physiological processes in virtually all living organisms. In humans, the master circadian clock resides in the suprachiasmatic nucleus, a tiny pair of structures in the hypothalamus, each containing approximately 10,000 neurons that sit directly above the optic chiasm where the optic nerves cross. These neurons contain a molecular clockwork based on a transcription-translation feedback loop, a set of clock genes and their protein products that cycle in and out of expression on a 24-hour period through mutual inhibition and activation. The discovery of the molecular mechanisms of the circadian clock, achieved primarily through research in fruit flies and mammals from the 1970s through the 2000s, was recognized by the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 2017, awarded to Jeffrey Hall, Michael Rosbash, and Michael Young for work on the genetic basis of circadian rhythms. The suprachiasmatic nucleus receives direct input from intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells, a recently discovered third type of photoreceptor in the eye, distinct from rods and cones, that contain the photopigment melanopsin and are particularly sensitive to short wavelength, blue light. These cells signal ambient light levels to the suprachiasmatic nucleus and thereby synchronize the internal clock to the external light-dark cycle, a process called entrainment. Exposure to bright light, particularly blue-enriched light, in the evening delays the timing of the circadian clock and suppresses the release of melatonin, the hormone produced by the pineal gland that signals darkness and promotes sleep onset. This is the mechanism by which evening exposure to the blue-enriched light of screens, LED lighting, and smartphones delays the circadian phase, making it harder to fall asleep and wake at desired times. Conversely, bright light exposure in the morning advances the circadian phase, making it easier to fall asleep earlier the following night. Melatonin is produced and secreted by the pineal gland, a small endocrine gland at the center of the brain that was described by Descartes as the seat of the soul. He chose it because it was the only brain structure he knew that was not bilateral. Melatonin secretion begins approximately 2 hours before the habitual sleep time and peaks in the middle of the night, declining in the early morning hours. It does not cause sleep directly. It is not a sedative, but it signals to the brain and body that it is night, coordinating various physiological processes with the sleep phase. Suppression of melatonin secretion by light exposure in the evening is one of the most reliable ways to delay sleep timing, and the use of melatonin supplements to advance sleep timing, taking a small dose several hours before the desired sleep time, has modest but real efficacy for adjusting circadian phase, particularly for jet lag and shift work. The pineal gland's production of melatonin declines with age, which may contribute to the earlier sleep timing and more fragmented sleep commonly observed in older adults. Sleep pressure, the homeostatic drive to sleep that accumulates during wakefulness, is the second major force regulating sleep timing alongside the circadian rhythm. Sleep pressure is thought to be mediated primarily by adenosine, a metabolic byproduct of neural activity that accumulates in the brain during waking and is cleared during sleep. As adenosine levels rise during wakefulness, the subjective experience of sleepiness increases and cognitive performance declines. The drug caffeine works by blocking adenosine receptors in the brain, preventing adenosine from signaling sleepiness without reducing its actual concentration. When caffeine wears off, the accumulated adenosine that was blocked floods the receptors, and the sleepiness that was masked returns, often more intensely than before. The two-process model of sleep regulation, proposed by Alexander Borbély in 1982, describes sleep timing as determined by the interaction between the homeostatic sleep pressure function, rising during waking, dissipating during sleep, and the circadian alerting signal, varying across the day in a pattern that opposes sleep pressure during the day and promotes it at night. The glymphatic system, described in detail by Maiken Nedergaard and colleagues at the University of Rochester in 2013, is a waste clearance system of the brain that becomes dramatically more active during sleep. During slow-wave sleep, the channels surrounding cerebral blood vessels, the perivascular spaces, widen by approximately 60% compared to the waking state, and cerebrospinal fluid flows rapidly through these channels, driven by the pulsations of the arterial walls, sweeping metabolic waste products out of the brain tissue. The most significant waste product cleared by this system is amyloid beta protein, the peptide that forms the amyloid plaques characteristic of Alzheimer's disease. Research has found that amyloid beta clearance from the brain is approximately twice as efficient during sleep as during waking. This discovery provided a compelling biological mechanism linking sleep deprivation to Alzheimer's disease risk, a connection that had been established epidemiologically through large studies showing elevated dementia risk in chronic poor sleepers, and it suggested that sleep is literally cleaning the brain of the metabolic byproducts of a day's neural activity. The relationship between sleep and Alzheimer's disease has become one of the more intensively studied areas of sleep medicine in the past decade. Large epidemiological studies have found that self-reported short sleep duration and poor sleep quality are associated with elevated risk of developing Alzheimer's disease and other dementias years to decades later. Experimental studies in humans have found that a single night of sleep deprivation produces a measurable increase in amyloid beta in the cerebrospinal fluid the following morning. Positron emission tomography studies have found that people who sleep fewer hours show greater amyloid accumulation in the brain over years of follow-up. The relationship is bidirectional. Once established, Alzheimer's disease disrupts sleep architecture, reducing slow-wave sleep and fragmenting sleep continuity, which may further impair amyloid clearance and accelerate the pathological progression. Whether improving sleep quality in middle and older age can meaningfully reduce dementia risk is an active area of clinical research, with several trials testing whether treating sleep disorders in at-risk populations has an effect on cognitive trajectories. The memory consolidation function of sleep has been demonstrated through dozens of carefully controlled experiments over the past 3 decades. The basic paradigm is straightforward. Subjects learn new material, a list of word pairs, a sequence of movements, a perceptual discrimination task, and are then either allowed to sleep or kept awake for an equivalent period before being tested on the learned material. Sleep often improves retention and performance compared to an equivalent period of waking, though the effect depends on the task, the timing, and the sleep stage being studied. Declarative memories, memories for facts and events, are strongly linked to NREM sleep, especially the coordination of slow oscillations, sleep spindles, and hippocampal sharp wave ripples. Motor and procedural learning often benefits from stage 2 NREM sleep and spindle activity, while some forms of emotional memory are especially influenced by our EM sleep. The important point is not that each memory type belongs neatly to one stage, but that sleep is not passive storage. It sorts, strengthens, weakens, and integrates information through several overlapping mechanisms across the night. The targeted memory reactivation paradigm provides some of the most compelling experimental evidence that specific memories can be selectively consolidated during sleep. In a typical experiment, subjects learn to associate objects with specific spatial locations on a grid, and each object is paired with a specific sound during learning. A picture of a kettle with the sound of boiling water, a picture of a cat with the sound of meowing. After the subjects fall asleep, some of the sounds are played softly during slow-wave sleep, while others are not. When tested the following day, subjects show significantly better memory for the locations of objects whose associated sounds were played during sleep than for objects whose sounds were not played. The manipulation specifically requires slow-wave sleep to work. Playing sounds during waking or during REM sleep does not produce the same selective enhancement. This finding implies that the sleeping brain can prioritize specific memories for consolidation in response to external cues, and it has inspired interest in potential clinical applications for enhancing specific types of learning or for selectively consolidating therapeutic memories during sleep. REM sleep and its role in emotional memory processing has been extensively studied, with findings that have significant implications for understanding both normal emotional regulation and the pathophysiology of post-traumatic stress disorder. Research by Matthew Walker and colleagues has proposed that our REM sleep provides a neurochemically unique environment in which emotional memories are reprocessed. The norepinephrine system, which is active during stress and which strengthens the emotional intensity of memories when activated, becomes unusually quiet during our REM sleep compared with waking and many other brain states. This low norepinephrine environment may allow emotional memories to be reactivated, as evidenced by the brain's activity during REM-related dreaming, without the full emotional charge that would accompany their reactivation during waking or other sleep stages. The result, Walker proposes, is that over successive nights of our REM sleep, the emotional intensity of distressing memories is gradually reduced while the factual content is preserved, a process he describes as overnight therapy. Consistent with this model, research has found that people who are awakened during our REM sleep whenever a dream begins, selectively depriving them of REM while allowing other sleep stages, show elevated anxiety and emotional reactivity the following day compared to control subjects. The role of our REM sleep in post-traumatic stress disorder is particularly significant. PTSD is characterized, among other things, by intrusive re-experiencing of traumatic events, including recurrent nightmares that replicate or closely approximate the traumatic event with unusual fidelity, a distinctive feature compared to ordinary negative dreams, which typically transform and displace their emotional content rather than replaying it accurately. Research has found that PTSD is associated with elevated norepinephrine levels during our REM sleep, which may interfere with the normal function of our REM sleep in reducing the emotional intensity of traumatic memories. Prazosin, a medication that blocks certain norepinephrine receptors, has been found to reduce PTSD-related nightmares in some clinical studies and in some patients, though results across trials have been mixed. This makes the noradrenergic model important, but not the whole story. Imagery rehearsal therapy, a behavioral treatment in which patients rewrite their nightmare script during waking hours and rehearse the revised version, is the most extensively validated treatment for chronic nightmare disorder, including PTSD nightmares, and its efficacy may involve the reconsolidation of fear memories during the REM sleep that follows the therapeutic session. Sleep and creativity have been studied in experimental paradigms that suggest sleep can help the mind find patterns it did not consciously see before. In some studies, people trained on a problem-solving task were more likely to discover a hidden rule after sleep than after an equivalent period of waking, a classic aha moment that felt sudden but may have depended on quiet offline reorganization. REM sleep is often linked to flexible, associative thinking because dreams connect distant ideas, loosen literal logic, and allow improbable combinations to appear. But it would be too simple to say that creativity belongs only to REM sleep. A full night includes NREM processes that stabilize and extract structure, and REM processes that may recombine and emotionally reshape material. Creative insight may emerge from the conversation between these states: deep sleep extracting patterns, lighter sleep protecting and linking them, and REM letting the mind test strange new associations without the ordinary gatekeeping of waking thought. The phenomenon of hypnagogic hallucinations, the vivid sensory experiences that often occur in the transition from waking to sleep, has been appreciated throughout history and exploited by some creators as a source of material. Hypnagogic hallucinations typically involve visual imagery that appears with dream-like vividness despite the person being partially awake and aware of their surroundings, flickering patterns, faces, landscapes, fleeting scenes. Auditory hypnagogia is also common, including hearing one's name called, hearing music, or hearing fragments of speech. The experiences are generated by the brain's perceptual systems as the external sensory input that normally suppresses internally generated imagery begins to withdraw. Thomas Edison reportedly exploited this state deliberately, holding a steel ball bearing in his hand as he dozed in a chair. When he fell deeply asleep, the ball would drop, waking him with a clatter, and he would immediately record whatever imagery he had experienced. The surrealist artist Salvador Dali reportedly used a similar technique with a key held over a plate. The hypnagogic state is now understood as reflecting the transition from waking default mode network activity and the gradual engagement of the REM-like hallucination-generating machinery of sleep. Humans are one of the relatively few mammals that sleep in a consolidated period rather than in multiple shorter episodes distributed through the day and night. Most mammals, including virtually all non-human primates, are polyphasic sleepers. They sleep in multiple shorter bouts and are active and resting intermittently throughout the 24-hour period. The biphasic pattern of many traditional human cultures, a longer primary nocturnal sleep combined with a shorter afternoon rest or siesta, may represent a more natural human sleep pattern than the strict monophasic sleep of modern industrialized societies, in which a single consolidated nocturnal sleep episode is the universal norm. Research on sleep in contemporary hunter-gatherer and hunter-horticultural societies, conducted by Jerome Siegel and colleagues among groups including the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of Namibia, and the Tsimane of Bolivia, found sleep periods that were not simply longer than modern industrial sleep and often averaged closer to the range of roughly 6 to 7 hours of actual sleep, with seasonal and environmental variation. These studies complicate the simple idea that pre-industrial humans always slept far longer than people do today. Temperatures at night in these outdoor sleeping environments typically fell toward dawn, and sleep onset was not at sunset, but approximately 3 hours after dark, when temperatures had dropped sufficiently. The consolidation of human sleep into a single long nocturnal period may be influenced by artificial lighting, work schedules, social expectations, and the way modern homes control temperature and darkness, though historians and sleep scientists continue to debate how universal older biphasic sleep patterns really were. Research by sleep historian Roger Kirch, documented in his book At Day's Close, found extensive historical evidence in pre-industrial European written records for a biphasic sleep pattern in which people slept a first sleep of several hours after dark, woke for an hour or two of quiet activity, prayer, reading, conversation, sexual intimacy, and then slept a second sleep until dawn. This pattern, which Kirch found documented across multiple centuries and multiple European cultures, appears to have become less common as artificial lighting extended the usable waking day into the evening and social schedules increasingly favored a single consolidated nocturnal sleep episode. Research by Thomas Ware at the National Institute of Mental Health in the 1990s found that when subjects were given 14 hours of darkness each night for several weeks, they often developed a period of sleep, then quiet wakefulness, then a second sleep period. This does not prove that all humans are naturally biphasic sleepers, but it does show that sleep architecture is flexible and strongly shaped by light exposure and environmental conditions. Sleep deprivation impairs cognition in ways that are both severe and insidious. Research by David Dingas and his colleagues at the University of Pennsylvania demonstrated that subjects restricted to 6 hours of sleep per night for 14 days showed performance deficits on tests of sustained attention equivalent to those produced by 2 full nights of total sleep deprivation, severe impairment by any standard. The critical and disturbing finding was that subjects who were chronically sleep-restricted subjectively felt only mildly sleepy. They rated their own sleepiness as relatively low, even as their objective performance continued to deteriorate. This dissociation between subjective sleepiness and objective impairment means that chronically sleep-deprived people are typically unaware of how impaired they are. They adapt to a state of impairment that they experience as normal, while their actual cognitive performance remains significantly degraded. The subjective adjustment to sleep restriction is not the same as physiological adaptation. The performance deficits do not diminish with continued sleep restriction, and they are resolved only by recovery sleep. The effects of sleep deprivation on emotional function are as severe as its effects on cognition, and may be more significant in terms of their impact on interpersonal relationships and quality of life. Research by Matthew Walker at UC Berkeley, using functional MRI to measure brain activity in sleep-deprived versus well-rested subjects exposed to threatening images, found that the amygdala, the brain structure central to emotional reactivity, showed approximately 60% greater activation in sleep-deprived subjects compared to well-rested controls. More significantly, the functional connectivity between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, the pathway through which the prefrontal cortex normally modulates and reduces amygdala activity, was significantly weakened after sleep deprivation. The result was a brain with a hyperreactive emotional system and a weakened capacity for cognitive regulation of that reactivity, more emotionally volatile, more impulsive, more likely to interpret ambiguous social signals as threatening, and less capable of the flexible, regulated emotional responses that effective social functioning requires. The immune system and sleep are bidirectionally connected in ways that have significant implications for health. During slow-wave sleep, the immune system shows peak activity, including elevated production of cytokines, signaling molecules that coordinate immune responses, and increased activity of natural killer cells, which identify and destroy infected and cancerous cells. Research has found that subjects who slept fewer hours before being exposed to the rhinovirus through nasal drops were significantly more likely to develop a cold than subjects who slept more, with subjects averaging less than 5 hours of sleep per night being approximately 4 times more likely to develop a cold than subjects averaging 7 or more hours. One of the cleaner demonstrations of a dose-response relationship between sleep duration and immune competence. The efficacy of vaccines is also influenced by sleep. Subjects who slept normally in the days following vaccination produced approximately twice as many antibodies as those who were sleep-deprived, suggesting that sleep is important for the immune learning that underlies vaccine-mediated immunity. Insomnia is the most common sleep disorder, affecting approximately 30% of adults at some level and approximately 10% with the chronic, clinically significant form that involves persistent difficulty initiating or maintaining sleep combined with significant daytime dysfunction. Insomnia is a disorder of hyperarousal. The brain remains too alert to fall asleep or stay asleep, with excessive activity in arousal-promoting systems during the sleep period. Sleep restriction therapy, paradoxically, is one of the most effective treatments for insomnia. Deliberately limiting the time spent in bed to match the actual amount of sleep being obtained temporarily increases homeostatic sleep pressure and thereby makes sleep more efficient and more consolidated. Cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, which combines sleep restriction with stimulus control, sleep hygiene education, cognitive restructuring of unhelpful beliefs about sleep, and relaxation techniques, is now recommended as the first-line treatment for chronic insomnia. More effective than sleep medications in the long term, and without the risks of dependence and next-day cognitive impairment that accompany many pharmacological approaches. Sleep apnea is a disorder in which breathing repeatedly stops and starts during sleep, typically because the upper airway collapses when the muscles that normally hold it open relax during sleep. Each episode of apnea produces a brief, partial arousal as the brain detects the fall in blood oxygen and drives the person to breathe again, an arousal that fragments sleep without being remembered consciously. People with severe sleep apnea may experience hundreds of these arousals per night, profoundly disrupting sleep architecture without being aware of why they feel unrefreshed in the morning. Sleep apnea is associated with elevated risks of cardiovascular disease, hypertension, diabetes, stroke, and motor vehicle accidents, as well as cognitive impairment and mood disorders. Continuous positive airway pressure, or CPAP, which delivers pressurized air through a mask worn during sleep to keep the airway open, is the gold standard treatment for moderate to severe sleep apnea and is remarkably effective when consistently used, with resolution of the excessive daytime sleepiness and significant reduction of cardiovascular risk with treatment. Narcolepsy is a chronic neurological disorder caused by the loss of hypocretin-producing neurons in the hypothalamus. Hypocretin, also called orexin, is a neuropeptide that stabilizes the sleep-wake boundary. It promotes wakefulness and prevents inappropriate intrusions of sleep into waking and waking elements into sleep. In narcolepsy type 1, the selective destruction of hypocretin neurons, thought to result from an autoimmune attack, produces a syndrome of excessive daytime sleepiness, cataplexy, sudden loss of muscle tone triggered by emotional arousal, particularly laughter, sleep paralysis, and hypnagogic hallucinations. Cataplexy is essentially the muscle paralysis of our REM sleep intruding into wakefulness, triggered by strong emotion, because the same limbic circuits that generate emotions also regulate the REM autonomous system. The discovery of the hypocretin system in the late 1990s and the subsequent demonstration that narcolepsy type 1 is caused by hypocretin deficiency was one of the key breakthroughs in understanding the neurobiology of sleep-wake regulation, and it suggested new therapeutic targets for disorders of sleep and arousal. The phenomenon of microsleeps, involuntary brief episodes of sleep lasting approximately 1 to 30 seconds that occur during waking in sleep-deprived individuals, is one of the most dangerous consequences of insufficient sleep. During a microsleep, the brain transitions briefly into sleep, with the characteristic slow waves of NREM appearing in the EEG, while the person may continue to sit upright with eyes open. They are typically completely unaware that the microsleep occurred. The danger of microsleeps in safety-critical situations, driving, operating machinery, performing medical procedures, is obvious. After prolonged wakefulness, attention becomes unstable, reaction time slows, and microsleeps become more likely, especially during monotonous tasks such as highway driving. At around 24 hours without sleep, lapses can become frequent enough that a person may no longer be able to reliably maintain alertness by willpower alone. The rate of road accidents attributable to drowsy driving is difficult to measure because drivers may not remember falling asleep and crashes may be coded under other causes. But traffic safety agencies agree that official counts underestimate the problem. Some estimates attribute a substantial number of crashes, injuries, and deaths each year to drowsy driving in the United States alone. The sleep of neonates and infants is dramatically different from adult sleep in both quantity and composition. Newborns sleep approximately 16 to 17 hours per day, and approximately 50% of their total sleep time is spent in REM sleep, called active sleep in neonates because the muscle autonia is incomplete and infants show visible movements, facial expressions, and vocalizations during this stage. The high proportion of REM sleep in early development is thought to reflect the role of the REM state in brain development. The spontaneous neural activity generated during REM sleep may serve as a form of internal stimulation that drives the maturation of sensory and motor circuits in the developing brain. The proportion of sleep time spent in REM decreases steadily through infancy and childhood, reaching approximately 20 to 25% in adults. Sleep deprivation in infants and young children has been found to impair cognitive development, emotional regulation, and physical growth, highlighting the critical developmental role of sleep in early life. The relationship between sleep and body weight has been established through multiple lines of evidence. Short sleep duration is associated with increased body mass index and elevated risk of obesity in both children and adults. Laboratory studies restricting sleep to 4 to 5 hours per night for several days produce measurable changes in appetite-regulating hormones. Leptin, the satiety hormone, decreases, and ghrelin, the hunger hormone, increases, producing increased subjective hunger and appetite, particularly for high-calorie, carbohydrate-dense foods. Functional neuroimaging studies have found that after sleep deprivation, the brain's reward system shows elevated responses to images of high-calorie foods, while the frontal regions that normally modulate food choices show reduced activity, a combination promoting impulsive, reward-driven food choices. The relationship between sleep and metabolism extends to insulin sensitivity. Even several nights of restricted sleep can measurably reduce the body's ability to handle glucose efficiently, a change that helps explain why chronic short sleep is associated with metabolic risk. The environmental factors that promote or inhibit sleep have been studied with increasing rigor as sleep science has matured. Core body temperature needs to fall by approximately 1 to 1.5 degrees Celsius to initiate and maintain sleep, and the body facilitates this fall by dilating peripheral blood vessels to radiate heat from the skin surface. This is why having warm hands and feet, which indicates effective peripheral vasodilation, predicts faster sleep onset. A cool bedroom environment supports the required core temperature drop and is associated with better sleep quality than a warm bedroom. Darkness supports sleep onset because light exposure, especially bright or blue-enriched light at the wrong time, can suppress melatonin production and activate alerting pathways of the circadian system. Noise during sleep, even at levels that do not produce full awakening, has been found to increase cortisol levels and reduce the proportion of time spent in slow-wave sleep, with traffic noise in particular associated with elevated cardiovascular risk in studies of populations living near highways and airports. The nap is one of the most evidence-supported behavioral interventions for cognitive performance. A brief nap of 20 to 30 minutes, a power nap in popular parlance, consisting primarily of stage 1 and stage 2 REM sleep, reliably improves alertness, reaction time, and cognitive performance for several hours, equivalent in some studies to the improvement produced by a cup of coffee, but with additional benefits for procedural memory and perceptual learning that caffeine does not provide. Longer naps of 60 to 90 minutes, which include slow-wave sleep and sometimes REM sleep, produce the full range of memory consolidation benefits, but are often followed by sleep inertia, grogginess, and impaired performance for 15 to 30 minutes after waking. The NASA NAP study, conducted in the 1990s, found that a nap opportunity producing about 26 minutes of actual sleep improved performance by approximately 34% and alertness by approximately 54% in sleepy pilots, establishing empirically what many cultures with traditional afternoon rest periods had long understood in practical terms. The cultural diversity of sleep practices across human societies is considerable and illustrates that the specific forms of sleep are shaped as much by social and environmental context as by universal biology. In many traditional societies, people sleep in groups, families or larger community groups sharing sleeping spaces, and individual sleep is rarely isolated and silent. The concept of a private bedroom in which a single person sleeps in darkness and silence is historically recent and culturally specific to relatively affluent modern societies. The Kung San of southern Africa traditionally sleep around communal fires, with people talking, tending the fire, and moving about throughout the night in a pattern that does not respect a strict boundary between sleeping and waking. In many parts of East Asia, including Japan and Amuri, sleeping in public contexts such as at work, on public transportation, or in meetings is culturally accepted and even interpreted as a sign of dedication rather than laziness, because it indicates that the person works so hard and so long that they must sleep wherever they can. These cultural variations do not invalidate universal biological requirements for sleep, but illustrate the diversity of social frameworks within which those requirements are met. Sleep disorders of arousal, including sleepwalking, sleep terrors, and confusional arousals, occur primarily during incomplete arousals from slow-wave sleep and illustrate the unusual hybrid neural states that can occur when some brain regions transition from deep sleep toward waking while others remain in deep sleep. A sleepwalker is in a state in which the motor systems of the brain are partially activated, capable of driving complex locomotion and behavior, while the parts of the brain responsible for conscious awareness, planning, and memory formation remain in a sleep-like state. This is why sleepwalkers can navigate around furniture, descend staircases, and even drive vehicles while remaining apparently unconscious and forming no memory of the episode. Sleep terrors, episodes of extreme fear, vocalization, and autonomic arousal occurring from deep sleep, occur without any remembered dream content, because they arise from deep REM sleep rather than from REM, and the absence of a narrative context means the terror is purely physiological, without any associated memory. Both sleepwalking and sleep terrors are more common in children, who have proportionally more slow-wave sleep and in whom the mechanisms for regulating the arousal threshold from deep sleep are still maturing. The scientific understanding of why we dream, what function, if any, the vivid, narrative experience of our EM sleep serves remains genuinely incomplete. Multiple theories have been proposed, and each captures something real. The threat simulation theory proposes that dreams are threat rehearsal, allowing the brain to practice responses to dangerous situations in a safe context. The memory consolidation theory proposes that dreams reflect and perhaps facilitate the integration of new experiences with existing memories. The emotional regulation theory proposes that dreams process emotionally charged experiences in the neurochemically unique environment of our EM sleep, reducing their effective intensity. The default mode network theory notes that the neural systems active during dreaming, particularly the medial prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, and the posterior parietal cortex, are the same systems active during mind-wandering and narrative self-reflection during waking, suggesting that dreaming may be the nighttime version of the self-referential, narrative processing that the default mode network specializes in. What remains genuinely unknown is why this processing is accompanied by the vivid, immersive, phenomenal experience of the dream, why there is something it is like to dream, rather than the same neural processing occurring without any subjective experience. One of the most elegant facts about sleep is that it is controlled by two interacting clocks, not one. The circadian clock tells the body when night and day are expected. The homeostatic sleep drive tells the body how long it has been awake. These two systems overlap, but do not perform the same job. A person can have strong sleep pressure after being awake too long, but still struggle to sleep if the circadian system is signaling daytime. And a person can be in the biological night, with melatonin rising and body temperature falling, but feel only mildly sleepy if they have slept recently. This is why jet lag feels so strange. The body can be exhausted, but the clock is pointing to the wrong part of the day. The mind wants rest. The cells are receiving a conflicting signal. Sleep begins most easily when these two forces agree. The circadian system does far more than schedule sleep. It coordinates the timing of hormone release, body temperature, digestion, immune activity, blood pressure, alertness, and even the expression of thousands of genes in different tissues. The liver has circadian rhythms. The heart has circadian rhythms. Fat cells, immune cells, and gut cells keep time. The suprachiasmatic nucleus in the brain acts as the master conductor, but many organs contain their own peripheral clocks, and these clocks can become misaligned when light, food, activity, and sleep occur at unusual times. This is one reason shift work can be so physiologically demanding. It is not only that the worker sleeps fewer hours, it is that the internal orchestra is being asked to play at different tempos with the brain, gut, liver, hormones, and social schedule no longer lined up cleanly. Body temperature is one of the quiet signals that helps guide the transition into sleep. Contrary to what one might expect, falling asleep is supported not by heating the body, but by allowing the core temperature to drop. In the evening, blood vessels in the hands and feet dilate, moving warm blood toward the surface of the skin, where heat can be released into the environment. Warm feet can therefore help sleep onset not because the whole body is getting hotter, but because heat is being moved outward so the core can cool. This is also why a bath or shower before bed can sometimes help. The warm water brings blood to the skin, and after leaving the bath, heat dissipates, assisting the natural downward drift in core temperature that accompanies sleep. The bedroom environment matters because sleep is not only a brain state. It is a whole-body negotiation with the surrounding world. Light tells the circadian system whether it is day or night. Temperature helps regulate the body's internal cooling. Noise determines how often the sleeping brain must partially rise toward wakefulness to check the environment. Air quality affects breathing. Even the emotional associations of a room can matter. A bed that has become associated with frustration, worry, or hours of wakeful effort can begin to trigger alertness rather than sleep. This is part of why behavioral insomnia treatment often emphasizes using the bed primarily for sleep. The brain is a learning organ, and it learns from context. Over time, a room can become a cue for vigilance or a cue for release. The transition into sleep is not like switching off a light. It is more like a city slowly dimming district by district. Attention becomes less stable. The muscles release small amounts of tension. Eye movement slow. Sensory input is still present, but it begins to lose its sharp priority. The mind may drift into fragments of imagery, half thoughts, sounds, or brief scenes that appear without deliberate control. This borderland is called hypnagogia, and it may be one of the most revealing states of consciousness humans regularly experience. It shows that the dreaming machinery does not wait for the middle of the night. It begins to appear at the edge of sleep, as waking control loosens and internally generated perception begins to compete with the outer world. Stage 1 sleep is brief, fragile, and often not experienced as sleep by the person who has entered it. If someone is awakened from stage 1, they may insist they were still awake, even though the EEG has already changed. This mismatch reveals something important. Subjective wakefulness and physiological wakefulness are not identical. The brain can begin sleep before the mind acknowledges it. Many people with insomnia underestimate how much they sleep, partly because light sleep does not feel like sleep to them. They may spend portions of the night in shallow sleep while experiencing the night as continuous wakefulness. This does not mean the distress is imaginary. It means that the human sense of sleep is itself imperfect, reconstructed from memory, sensation, and expectation. Stage 2 sleep is sometimes called light sleep, but the word light can make it sound unimportant. In reality, adults spend a large portion of the night in stage 2, and it contains some of the most interesting electrical events in the sleeping brain. Sleep spindles may help shield sleep from external disturbance by briefly raising the threshold for awakening. K-complexes may represent the brain's decision process when a sound or touch reaches the sleeping nervous system, important enough to wake up or safe enough to fold into sleep and continue. A person sleeping in a familiar environment may ignore countless harmless noises, yet wake instantly to the cry of a child, a strange footstep, or their own name. Sleep is not deaf. It is selective. Deep sleep has a special physical quality. Breathing becomes slower and more regular. Heart rate falls. Blood pressure drops. The face relaxes. The brain's electrical activity becomes dominated by large, slow waves that move through the cortex like tides. This is the stage from which people are hardest to awaken, and if awakened, they may feel confused, disoriented, or heavy. Deep sleep is especially abundant in children and adolescents and declines with age. This decline does not mean older adults no longer need restoration. Rather, the architecture through which restoration occurs changes. One of the unsolved questions in sleep science is how much of the age-related decline in deep sleep is inevitable biology, and how much is driven by light exposure, illness, medications, pain, stress, inactivity, or other modifiable factors. Our EM sleep looks paradoxical because the brain becomes active while the body becomes still. The eyes move rapidly behind closed lids. Breathing becomes irregular. Heart rate varies. The brain's electrical activity resembles waking more than deep sleep. Yet the major skeletal muscles are inhibited, producing a near paralysis called REM atonia. This paralysis is not a defect, it is protection. Without it, the body might act out the movements of dreams. In our EM sleep behavior disorder, this protective paralysis fails, and people may punch, shout, kick, or leap in response to dream content. The disorder is clinically important because in some cases it can precede the development of neurodegenerative diseases involving alpha-synuclein, such as Parkinson's disease, by years. A strange dream movement can therefore become an early sign of a much deeper neurological process. Dreaming is not limited to our EM sleep. Although our EM dreams are usually more vivid, emotional, bizarre, and story-like. NREM dreams tend to be more thought-like, more ordinary, and more closely tied to recent waking concerns. This distinction matters because it shows that dreaming is not a single phenomenon. The sleeping mind can generate imagery, narrative, emotion, rehearsal, memory fragments, and problem-solving in several different neural states. Dreams may be less like a nightly movie and more like a family of related processes. Memory fragments recombining, emotions being tested, expectations being updated, and the sense of self continuing its strange work without the ordinary anchoring of the outside world. The content of dreams often feels meaningless when described in daylight, yet emotionally precise while it is happening. A dream may place the dreamer in an impossible city, combine people from different decades of life, change the rules of physics, and still carry a clear emotional tone. Shame, longing, fear, relief, desire, grief, wonder. This suggests that dreams may preserve emotional logic even when narrative logic collapses. The brain may not be asking, "What literally happened?" It may be asking, "What does this feel like? Which memories belong near this feeling? Which fears resemble this one? Which old situation has the same emotional shape as the new one?" Dreaming may be one way the brain searches through the emotional archive. Nightmares are dreams in which that emotional system becomes too intense. Ordinary bad dreams can be unpleasant, but they usually remain flexible and symbolic. Traumatic nightmares are different. They can be repetitive, vivid, and closely tied to a real event, as if the brain is trapped in a failed attempt to process what happened. This is one reason nightmare treatment can involve changing the dream during waking life. In imagery rehearsal therapy, a person writes a new version of the nightmare, rehearses it while awake, and gradually trains the dreaming brain toward a less terrifying script. It is a remarkable idea. The waking imagination can sometimes reach into the sleeping imagination and alter its path. Lucid dreaming occurs when the dreamer realizes they are dreaming while the dream continues. For some people, lucidity is brief, a flash of recognition, followed by waking. For others, it can last long enough to influence the dream environment, make choices, or observe the dream with unusual clarity. Neuroscientifically, lucid dreaming appears to involve a partial reactivation of metacognitive systems that are usually quieter during our EM sleep, the parts of the brain that allow a person to reflect on their own mental state. Lucidity shows that consciousness is not simply on or off during sleep. There are intermediate states, hybrid states, and rare moments when the mind becomes aware inside its own simulation. Sleep paralysis is another hybrid state, and one of the most frightening. A person wakes mentally while the REM paralysis has not yet lifted. They may feel unable to move or speak. Because REM imagery can intrude into waking awareness, they may also sense a presence in the room, see a figure, feel pressure on the chest, or hear strange sounds. Across cultures, these experiences have been interpreted as demons, spirits, witches, ghosts, or alien visitations. The physiology is simple, but the experience is powerful. Waking awareness plus REM autonia plus dream imagery. Sleep paralysis is usually harmless, but it reveals how easily the brain can generate a convincing external reality from internal signals when the boundary between states fails to close cleanly. The thalamus plays a central role in protecting sleep. During waking, it acts as a relay station, transmitting sensory information from the body and the outside world to the cortex. During NREM sleep, the thalamus changes its firing mode, reducing the flow of sensory information upward. This does not shut the world out completely, but it gates it. The sleeping brain is still sampling the environment, but less information reaches full cortical processing. This is why a soft but meaningful sound can wake you while a louder familiar sound does not. The brain is not merely measuring volume. It is weighing meaning, relevance, novelty, and threat, even while most of consciousness is offline. One of the most fascinating questions in sleep science is how the brain decides when to wake. Awakening is not just the reverse of falling asleep. It requires the coordinated activation of arousal systems in the brainstem, hypothalamus, thalamus, and cortex. Neurochemical systems involving acetylcholine, norepinephrine, serotonin, dopamine, histamine, and orexin all contribute to the state of wakefulness. These systems do not switch on evenly. Some parts of the brain may wake before others, which helps explain sleep inertia, the groggy, slowed, heavy state that can follow awakening, especially from deep sleep. A person may be technically awake and still not fully cognitively online. The brain returns from sleep in stages. Sleep inertia can be more than a mild inconvenience. In professions requiring immediate performance after waking, emergency medicine, aviation, military response, caregiving, industrial work, the impaired minutes after abrupt awakening can matter. Reaction time, working memory, decision-making, and mood may all be degraded. The effect is strongest after awakening from deep sleep and after sleep deprivation. This is one reason shift schedules and emergency call systems are difficult to design safely. The body can be forced awake instantly, but the brain cannot always be forced into full operational readiness at the same speed. The relationship between sleep and memory is not simply storage. Sleep does not preserve everything equally. It appears to sort, strengthen, weaken, integrate, and generalize. Some memories are stabilized. Others fade. Emotional tone can be altered. Details may be separated from meaning. Skills become smoother. Rules hidden inside examples become easier to detect. This selectivity is essential. A brain that remembered every detail equally would not be wise. It would be cluttered. Sleep may help the brain decide which parts of the day matter, which patterns deserve extraction, and which traces can be allowed to dissolve. The idea that sleep helps the brain forget may sound strange, but forgetting is one of the most important functions of any learning system. During waking, synapses are strengthened as experiences are encoded. If every synaptic strengthening were preserved indefinitely, the brain would become metabolically expensive, noisy, and saturated. One influential theory, the synaptic homeostasis hypothesis, proposes that sleep helps downscale synaptic strength globally while preserving the relative differences that matter most. In simpler terms, waking writes heavily. Sleep turns down the background volume while keeping the important melody. This would make learning more efficient, conserve energy, and prepare the brain to learn again the next day. The sleeping brain also rehearses movement. Studies in animals show that patterns of neural activity associated with running through a maze can replay during sleep, often at compressed speed. Similar processes appear to occur in humans after practicing motor skills. A pianist, athlete, typist, dancer, or surgeon may improve after sleep, not because muscles change dramatically overnight, but because neural representations of the skill were reorganized. This is one reason practice followed by sleep can be more powerful than practice followed by continued stimulation. The brain needs the waking repetition, but it also needs the offline processing that makes the repetition durable. Language learning is especially sleep-dependent. New vocabulary, grammar patterns, and sound distinctions all benefit from sleep. A person may struggle with a new word in the evening and find it easier the next day, not because they consciously practiced in the night, but because the sleeping brain integrated the new word into existing language networks. In children, sleep appears to support the abstraction of grammatical patterns from heard speech. In adults learning a second language, sleep can help stabilize pronunciation, word meaning, and recognition of unfamiliar phonetic contrasts. The phrase "sleep on it" is not only metaphorical. For certain kinds of learning, sleeping on it is part of the learning. Sleep also supports emotional intelligence in a very literal sense. After sleep deprivation, people become worse at reading facial expressions accurately. Neutral faces may be interpreted as more threatening. Emotional responses become more intense and less regulated. Social patience decreases. Humor changes. Empathy becomes more effortful. This matters because insufficient sleep does not harm only the person who slept badly. It spills outward into relationships. A poorly slept brain is more defensive, more reactive, and less generous in interpretation. Many conflicts that appear to be about personality, respect, or love may be intensified by a nervous system that simply has not been restored. The link between sleep and pain is another area where the relationship runs both ways. Pain disrupts sleep, but poor sleep also amplifies pain sensitivity. Experiments show that sleep deprivation can lower pain thresholds, making the same stimulus feel more painful. Clinically, people with chronic pain often enter a vicious cycle. Pain fragments sleep. Fragmented sleep heightens pain. Heightened pain increases stress and vigilance makes sleep harder. Treating sleep in chronic pain patients is therefore not a luxury or an afterthought. It can be part of reducing the nervous system's overall sensitivity. Sleep is one of the ways the body turns down the gain on threat signals. The immune system uses sleep as a time for coordination. During infection, inflammatory signals increase sleepiness, producing the familiar desire to withdraw, lie down, and sleep. This sickness behavior is not merely weakness. It is part of an adaptive response. The body conserves energy, reduces activity, raises temperature, and shifts resources toward immune defense. Fever and sleep often travel together because both are regulated by immune-brain communication. To sleep during illness is not doing nothing. It is allowing the immune system to use the state in which many of its processes are best supported. Vaccination provides a clean example of sleep's role in immune learning. A vaccine works by presenting the immune system with a harmless or controlled version of an antigen so that immune memory can be built. Sleep after vaccination appears to support the formation of that immune memory, including antibody responses. This does not mean one night of poor sleep ruins a vaccine, but it does show that immune memory, like cognitive memory, is not simply formed at the moment of exposure. It is consolidated over time, and sleep helps shape that consolidation. The sleeping body is remembering biologically. Metabolism changes dramatically across sleep and waking. During healthy sleep, glucose regulation, insulin sensitivity, appetite hormones, and energy use follow coordinated rhythms. When sleep is restricted, appetite often increases, especially for calorie-dense foods. The tired brain seeks quick energy and reward. At the same time, insulin sensitivity can decline, meaning the body has more difficulty moving glucose efficiently from the blood into cells. This combination, more hunger, stronger reward response to food, poorer glucose regulation, and less energy for physical activity, helps explain why chronic short sleep is associated with weight gain and metabolic disease. The problem is not simply willpower. It is physiology. The cardiovascular system also rests during sleep, but not passively. Blood pressure normally dips at night, a pattern called nocturnal dipping. This nightly reduction gives the blood vessels and heart a period of lower load. People whose blood pressure does not dip normally during sleep, a pattern associated with sleep apnea, chronic stress, kidney disease, and other conditions, have elevated cardiovascular risk. Our REM sleep produces more variability in heart rate and blood pressure, while deep in REM sleep is generally more stable and restorative. A healthy night, therefore, contains both quiet cardiovascular lowering and dynamic periods of variability, each reflecting a different kind of regulation. Obstructive sleep apnea is especially important because it can hide behind ordinary language. A person may say they are tired, unfocused, irritable, or depressed. They may believe they sleep enough hours. But if the airway repeatedly collapses at night, the brain may be pulled toward wakefulness hundreds of times without full conscious memory. Oxygen levels may fall. Blood pressure may surge. The heart and blood vessels experience repeated stress. The morning may bring headaches, dry mouth, and exhaustion. Snoring is common but not harmless when it is paired with pauses in breathing, choking, gasping, or severe daytime sleepiness. In such cases, sleep is not simply short. It is broken from within. Insomnia is often misunderstood as a lack of sleepiness. Many people with insomnia are exhausted. The issue is that exhaustion does not automatically produce sleep when the arousal system remains too active. The insomniac brain can become intensely focused on the act of sleeping, monitoring every sensation, calculating the remaining hours until morning, and fearing the consequences of another bad night. That monitoring itself becomes arousing. The harder the person tries to force sleep, the more wakefulness becomes associated with the bed. This is why cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia does not simply tell people to relax. It retrains the relationship between bed, wakefulness, fear, and sleep pressure. Sleep medications can be useful in specific situations, but they are not the same as natural sleep. Some sedative hypnotic drugs reduce consciousness without fully reproducing normal sleep architecture. They may alter the amount of REM sleep, slow-wave sleep, or awakenings, and some can impair memory, balance, and next-day alertness. This does not mean they have no place. In acute crisis, short-term medical use may be appropriate. But for chronic insomnia, behavioral treatment often produces more durable benefit because it changes the systems that maintain the disorder rather than merely suppressing wakefulness for a night. A drug can produce unconsciousness. Healthy sleep is an organized biological state. Alcohol is one of the most common substances people use to fall asleep and one of the most misleading. It can shorten sleep onset because it has sedating effects, but it fragments sleep later in the night, suppresses REM sleep in the early part of the night, worsens snoring and sleep apnea by relaxing airway muscles, and can produce rebound awakenings as it is metabolized. The person may fall asleep faster, but wake less restored. This distinction matters. Sleep onset is only one part of sleep quality. A night can begin quickly and still be physiologically poor if the architecture is disrupted. Caffeine has a long half-life, often around 5 to 6 hours in many adults, though metabolism varies widely based on genetics, pregnancy, medications, liver function, and habitual use. This means that a cup of coffee in the afternoon can still leave a meaningful amount of caffeine active in the evening. Because caffeine blocks adenosine receptors rather than removing adenosine, it masks sleep pressure without paying the debt. For some people, even caffeine consumed early in the day can reduce deep sleep at night without producing obvious difficulty falling asleep. They may say caffeine does not affect them because they can sleep after it, while the sleep itself becomes lighter or less restorative. Chronotypes, morningness and eveningness, reflect real biological variation. Some people naturally feel alert early and sleepy early. Others reach their best cognitive state later in the day and struggle with early schedules. Chronotype is influenced by genetics, age, light exposure, social obligations, and behavior. Adolescents tend to shift later, partly because the circadian system changes during puberty, making early school start times biologically misaligned for many teenagers. Older adults often shift earlier. Social systems, however, often treat one schedule as morally superior. early rising as discipline, late rising as laziness. Sleep science complicates that judgment. Timing is partly character, but it is also biology. Social jet lag occurs when a person's biological schedule and social schedule diverge. Someone may wake early for work or school during the week, accumulate sleep debt, and then sleep late on weekends. This helps recover some lost sleep, but also shifts the circadian system later, making Monday morning harder. The result is a weekly oscillation resembling repeated travel across time zones without leaving home. Social jet lag is associated with poorer mood, metabolic risk, and lower sleep quality. The problem is not simply that people lack discipline. It is that their obligations may be scheduled against their biology. Dream recall varies enormously between individuals and across nights. Some people remember dreams almost every morning. Others believe they rarely dream. In most cases, low recall does not mean absence of dreaming. It often means the person did not awaken during or shortly after the dream, or that the dream memory was not encoded strongly enough before waking cognition took over. Dream memories are fragile because the neurochemical state of our REM sleep is not ideal for forming stable episodic memories. If you wake and immediately move, check a phone, or think about the day, the dream can vanish within seconds. The dream was experienced, but not preserved. The content of dreams often incorporates recent experiences, a phenomenon called the day residue effect. A conversation, image, worry, or place from the previous day may reappear in altered form. But dreams also draw on older memories, sometimes combining recent material with themes from years earlier. This mixing suggests that dreams may not simply replay the day. They may compare the day with the existing memory network, searching for associations. A small embarrassment at work may be woven together with a school memory. A new city may become fused with a childhood street. The dreaming brain is not loyal to chronology. It is loyal to emotional and associative similarity. The feeling of falling that sometimes occurs at sleep onset, often followed by a sudden muscle jerk, is called a hypnic jerk. It is common and usually harmless. The exact mechanism is not fully settled, but it may reflect the motor system's transition into sleep as muscle tone decreases and the brain briefly misinterprets the relaxation as falling. Stress, caffeine, sleep deprivation, and irregular sleep schedules can make hypnic jerks more frequent. They are a reminder that sleep onset requires the body to surrender control gradually, and sometimes the motor system resists that surrender for a fraction of a second. The phrase beauty sleep contains more science than it seems. Sleep affects skin barrier function, inflammation, wound healing, collagen metabolism, and facial appearance. After sleep deprivation, people are often rated as looking more tired, less healthy, and sometimes less socially approachable. Puffy eyelids, duller skin tone, and changes in facial expression are not superficial in the biological sense. They reflect fluid regulation, inflammation, autonomic state, and muscle tone. The face is a visible surface of the nervous system's condition. A restored body often looks restored because restoration has actually occurred. The relationship between sleep and growth is especially visible in children. Growth hormone is secreted in pulses, with a major pulse occurring during deep sleep. This does not mean children grow only at night in a simple mechanical sense, but it does mean sleep is tightly linked to the hormonal environment that supports growth and tissue repair. In adults, growth hormone still contributes to metabolism, muscle maintenance, and tissue recovery. Sleep is therefore relevant not only to the brain, but to the body's continuous rebuilding. Muscles, bones, skin, and connective tissues all exist within rhythms shaped partly by sleep. Athletic performance depends on sleep in several ways: reaction time, coordination, motivation, pain tolerance, muscle recovery, glycogen metabolism, and injury risk. Studies of athletes often find that extended sleep opportunities improve sprint times, shooting accuracy, mood, and perceived exertion. Conversely, sleep restriction can impair judgment and increase the likelihood of errors. The body learns and repairs during sleep. The athlete's nervous system recalibrates movement. The endocrine system supports recovery. Training breaks tissue down in controlled ways. Sleep is part of how the body builds it back stronger. The menstrual cycle, pregnancy, postpartum period, and menopause can all reshape sleep. Hormonal changes influence body temperature, mood, breathing, pain sensitivity, and circadian timing. During pregnancy, sleep may be disrupted by physical discomfort, reflux, frequent urination, fetal movement, and changes in breathing. After birth, infant care fragments sleep in ways that can be profound, especially because the parent may be awakened repeatedly from different sleep stages. During menopause, hot flashes and changes in thermoregulation can produce awakenings and insomnia symptoms. Sleep is not separate from reproductive biology. It moves with it. Sleep in older adulthood changes in recognizable ways. Older adults often experience lighter sleep, more awakenings, earlier sleep and wake times, and less slow-wave sleep. But poor sleep should not be dismissed as inevitable just because someone is older. Pain, medications, depression, sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome, nocturia, low daytime light exposure, inactivity, and irregular schedules can all worsen sleep. Treating these factors can improve sleep at any age. The aging brain may sleep differently, but it still benefits from rhythm, light, movement, comfort, and medical attention when sleep becomes severely disrupted. Restless leg syndrome is a sleep-related movement disorder characterized by an uncomfortable urge to move the legs, usually worse in the evening and at rest, and relieved temporarily by movement. It can delay sleep onset for hours and fragment sleep once it begins. The condition is associated in some cases with iron deficiency or altered dopamine signaling, and it often responds to targeted treatment. Its existence is a useful reminder that insomnia is not always psychological. Sometimes a person cannot sleep because the body is sending persistent sensory signals that make stillness almost impossible. Periodic limb movements during sleep are repetitive movements, usually of the legs, that can occur throughout the night and cause brief arousals. The person may not remember moving. They may only know that sleep feels unrefreshing. A bed partner may notice the kicks before the sleeper understands the problem. Many sleep disorders are like this. The evidence is in the night, but the suffering is in the day. Sleep medicine often has to reconstruct hidden events from daytime symptoms, partner reports, and physiological recordings. The polysomnogram is the central diagnostic tool of sleep medicine. It records brain waves, eye movements, muscle tone, breathing, oxygen levels, heart rhythm, limb movements, and sometimes carbon dioxide levels and body position. A sleeping person in a lab, connected to wires and sensors, may look far from natural, yet the data can reveal the architecture of the night with remarkable precision. It can show apneas, arousals, REM abnormalities, limb movements, seizure activity, and the distribution of sleep stages. In a sense, polysomnography lets clinicians read the sleeping body as a score, the rhythm of breath, the pulse of the heart, the waves of the brain, the small interruptions that the conscious mind never remembers. Wearable sleep trackers have made sleep data familiar to millions of people, but they have limitations. Most consumer devices estimate sleep stages from movement, heart rate, and sometimes skin temperature or oxygen saturation. They do not directly measure the brain waves that define sleep stages clinically. They can be useful for identifying patterns, bedtime consistency, total sleep opportunity, restlessness, heart rate trends, but their stage estimates should not be treated as perfect truth. For some anxious sleepers, Trackers can even worsen insomnia by creating orthosomnia, a preoccupation with achieving perfect sleep scores that increases stress and undermines sleep itself. Data can help, but sleep also requires trust. The sleeping brain is highly responsive to rhythm. Lullabies, rocking, slow breathing, and repetitive sound all exploit the nervous system's tendency to settle into predictable patterns. In infants, rocking and rhythmic contact help regulate arousal. In adults, slow music, steady rain sounds, or quiet narration can reduce the sense of threat and novelty that keeps the arousal system active. The effect is not magical. Predictable sensory input can signal safety. The brain does not need to analyze every moment when the environment becomes regular, soft, and unsurprising. This is part of why a calm voice can become a bridge into sleep. Breathing patterns influence arousal because breathing is both automatic and voluntarily controllable. Slow breathing can increase parasympathetic activity through vagal pathways and baroreflex mechanisms, reducing heart rate and supporting a calmer state. This does not mean breathing exercises cure all insomnia or anxiety, but they can shift the body away from high sympathetic activation. The important point is not to force the breath aggressively. Forced relaxation can become another performance task. Gentle, slow breathing works best when treated as an invitation rather than a command. The connection between sleep and mental health is deep and bidirectional. Depression can produce insomnia or hypersomnia. Anxiety can delay sleep onset and produce early awakenings. Bipolar disorder is strongly linked to circadian disruption, and sleep loss can contribute to manic episodes in vulnerable individuals. Psychosis can be worsened by severe sleep deprivation. At the same time, improving sleep can reduce symptoms across many psychiatric conditions. Sleep is not merely a symptom that follows mental health. It is part of the biological foundation on which emotional stability is built. Adolescents are uniquely vulnerable to sleep deprivation because their biology shifts later at the same time their schedules often shift earlier. The circadian delay of puberty makes it harder for many teenagers to fall asleep early, while early school start times require waking at a biologically unfavorable hour. The result is chronic sleep restriction during a period when the brain is still developing executive function, emotional regulation, and learning capacity. Later school start times have been associated in many studies with longer sleep duration, better attendance, and in some cases improved mood and academic outcomes. This is one of the clearest examples of a social schedule colliding with biology. The brain during sleep is not disconnected from learning that happens during the night, but the limits are important. People cannot usually learn complex new information from recordings played during sleep in the way old myths suggested. Sleep learning, in the simple sense of absorbing a new language or textbook while unconscious, does not work well. But the sleeping brain can strengthen information learned before sleep, and it can respond to cues associated with that information. This difference matters. Sleep is not a substitute for learning. It is a partner to learning. The day introduces material. The night helps decide what becomes part of the person. Smell has an unusual relationship with sleep. Odors often fail to wake people as reliably as sounds do, which is one reason smoke detectors use loud alarms rather than relying on smell. Yet pleasant or meaningful odors can influence dream emotion and memory processing. Experiments using odors during sleep have shown that smell can cue memory reactivation without necessarily waking the sleeper. This makes olfaction a quiet doorway into the sleeping brain, less disruptive than sound, less direct than touch, but capable of shaping the atmosphere of the night. The sleeping brain is also vulnerable to temperature extremes. If the room is too hot, sleep becomes more fragmented, with reductions in our EM and deep sleep in some studies. If the room is too cold and the body cannot maintain thermal comfort, sleep also suffers. Bedding, clothing, humidity, and air movement all matter because the microclimate around the body determines how easily heat is exchanged. Sleep occurs inside a small climate made by the room and the bed together. The ideal is not simply coldness, but the ability of the body to cool its core while keeping the skin comfortable enough that defensive arousal is not triggered. Light at night affects sleep not only by suppressing melatonin, but by sending a daytime signal to the circadian system. The most biologically potent light is bright, blue-enriched light reaching the retina, but brightness, timing, duration, and individual sensitivity all matter. A few seconds of dim light is not the same as an hour of bright overhead lighting. Screens are part of the issue, but so are bathroom lights, kitchen lights, street lights, and the habit of turning night into a miniature day. Darkness is not an aesthetic preference for sleep. It is a biological input. Morning light is the other side of the same system. Bright outdoor light soon after waking helps anchor the circadian rhythm, making it easier for the body to predict the next night. Indoor light is usually far dimmer than outdoor daylight, even on a cloudy day. A person may live in a bright-looking apartment that is biologically dim compared with the outside world. Morning light, movement, meals, and social contact all help tell the brain that the day has begun. Good sleep often starts not at bedtime, but at wake time. Meals can influence sleep timing and quality. Large, heavy meals close to bedtime can increase reflux, discomfort, and body temperature. Going to bed extremely hungry can also disrupt sleep. Carbohydrate timing, alcohol, caffeine, spicy foods, hydration, and meal regularity all interact with the circadian system. The gut has clocks, and eating late at night can send metabolic signals that conflict with the central clock's expectation of rest. This is one reason sleep and digestion are so closely linked. The body does not only ask, "Is it dark?" It also asks, "Are we digesting, moving, worrying, cooling, repairing?" The evolutionary puzzle of sleep remains profound. Sleep makes an animal less responsive to predators, less able to forage, less able to mate, and less able to care for offspring moment by moment. Yet evolution has preserved sleep again and again. Some animals have modified it dramatically. Dolphins and some other marine mammals can sleep one hemisphere of the brain at a time, allowing them to surface for air and maintain some awareness. Migrating birds can reduce sleep or sleep in brief fragments. Certain animals sleep more during safe periods and less during dangerous ones. But the need is never simply abolished. Life negotiates with sleep. It does not escape it. Unihemispheric sleep is especially strange from a human perspective. In some birds and marine mammals, one hemisphere shows sleep like electrical activity while the other remains more wake-like, sometimes with one eye open. This allows rest while maintaining environmental monitoring. It also challenges the simple idea that sleep is a whole brain state. Sleep can be local. Parts of the brain can be more asleep or more awake than others. Even in humans, research suggests that during sleep in an unfamiliar environment, one hemisphere may remain slightly more vigilant on the first night, a phenomenon sometimes called the first night effect. The sleeping brain carries a watchman. Local sleep may also occur during waking. When people are severely sleep-deprived, small groups of neurons can show sleep like slow waves while the person appears awake. This may contribute to lapses in attention, errors, and the strange feeling of being awake but not fully present. The boundary between sleep and wake is therefore not always clean. A sleep-deprived person can be globally awake and locally asleep. This is one reason fatigue is dangerous. The person may insist they are awake, and technically they are, while parts of the brain needed for attention are briefly offline. The glymphatic system has captured public imagination because it offers such a vivid image: sleep as the washing of the brain. The reality is more complex, and much of the mechanistic work comes from animal studies. But the central idea is powerful. Neural activity produces metabolic byproducts. The brain lacks the same conventional lymphatic drainage found in many other tissues. During sleep, fluid movement through and around brain tissue appears to support waste clearance. This does not reduce sleep to cleaning. Sleep does many things, but it gives a concrete biological meaning to the familiar feeling of waking clearer after a good night. The link between sleep and Alzheimer's disease should be presented carefully because association does not prove simple causation. Poor sleep may contribute to amyloid accumulation. Early Alzheimer's pathology may disrupt sleep before memory symptoms become obvious. Other factors may influence both. The relationship is likely a loop rather than a one-way road. Still, the fact that sleep, amyloid, tau, inflammation, and neural health are connected has transformed how researchers think about prevention. Sleep is no longer treated as a passive lifestyle detail. It is part of brain maintenance across decades. Time perception changes around sleep. A person may lie awake for 20 minutes and experience it as 2 hours, especially when anxious. Another may sleep lightly and believe no sleep occurred. Dreams can seem to contain long stories even when the REM period is brief. Upon waking, the mind reconstructs the night from fragments, clock checks, discomfort, dream residue, memory gaps, and expectation. This is why subjective sleep and objective sleep often differ. The night is not remembered like the day. It is inferred. The morning mood after sleep is shaped by more than sleep duration. Waking from deep sleep can feel worse than waking from lighter sleep, even if the total night was adequate. REM dreams can leave emotional traces. Cortisol naturally rises before waking in the cortisol awakening response, helping mobilize the body for the day. Blood pressure rises. Body temperature climbs. The brain shifts from internally dominated processing toward external orientation. A smooth morning is therefore a coordinated physiological event. Waking is a biological sunrise. Jet lag reveals the stubbornness of the circadian clock. When a person crosses time zones, the social world changes instantly, but the body changes slowly. The stomach may expect meals at the old time. The brain may become sleepy in the afternoon and alert at night. Body temperature reaches its minimum at the wrong local hour. Light exposure can shift the clock, but timing matters. Light at one circadian phase advances the rhythm, while light at another delays it. This is why poorly timed bright light can worsen jet lag. The clock is adjustable, but not by command. It must be persuaded. Shift work places the body in a repeated state of negotiation. Night workers may try to sleep during the day when light, noise, social demands, and circadian alerting signals oppose sleep. They may work at night when the circadian system promotes sleep and performance is naturally lower. Rotating shifts are especially difficult because the body begins to adapt and then the schedule changes again. The health risks associated with shift work are not caused by a single factor, but by a cluster: circadian misalignment, short sleep, social disruption, light at night, eating at biological night, and chronic stress. It is a biological problem created by social necessity. The relationship between sleep and technology is not only about blue light. It is also about emotional and cognitive activation. A screen can deliver work messages, social comparison, news, conflict, novelty, gambling like reward loops, and endless unfinished content. The brain does not prepare for sleep easily when it is being asked to evaluate threats, respond socially, make decisions, or chase novelty. Even dim content can be arousing if it matters emotionally. The issue is not the rectangle of glass alone. It is what the rectangle asks the brain to become at the exact hour when the brain should be becoming less responsive. Reading before sleep can be calming when the material is gentle and the light is low, but stimulating when the material is emotionally intense or intellectually demanding. The same is true of audio. A calm narrative can give the mind a soft track to follow, preventing rumination without demanding sharp attention. But suspense, argument, comedy, or unresolved information can pull the brain upward. Bedtime content works best when it is interesting enough to occupy the mind, but not so urgent that the mind fights sleep to keep listening. This is the delicate balance of sleep narration, curiosity without adrenaline. The sleeping body changes posture repeatedly through the night. Small movements prevent pressure injury, redistribute blood flow, and maintain comfort. A perfectly still night is not necessarily a healthier night. Movement becomes a problem when it fragments sleep, reflects breathing disturbance, pain, restless legs, or other disorders. But ordinary turning is part of sleep's maintenance. The body does not simply lie there like an object. It adjusts, protects tissue, regulates temperature, and keeps the sleeping organism intact. The immune and nervous systems communicate continuously during sleep. Cytokines can alter sleep depth. Sleep loss can increase inflammatory markers. Chronic inflammation can disturb sleep. This bidirectional communication helps explain why poor sleep is common in autoimmune disease, chronic infection, depression, obesity, and stress-related disorders. The body does not divide itself into separate chapters the way textbooks do. Sleep, immunity, metabolism, mood, and pain are interwoven systems. When one is disturbed, the others often respond. The idea of a sleep debt is useful but incomplete. Lost sleep can be partly recovered, especially after acute deprivation, but recovery is not always one-to-one. After a very short night, the next sleep may contain more deep sleep, showing that the brain prioritizes certain stages. But chronic restriction over weeks cannot always be fully repaired by one long weekend sleep. Some functions recover quickly, others take longer. The body is flexible, but not infinitely forgiving. Sleep debt is not like a bank account with perfect arithmetic. It is more like physiological where that can be repaired, but best not accumulated endlessly. The minimum sleep needed varies among individuals, but true, natural short sleepers are rare. Some people function well on 6 hours because of genetics, but many more people believe they function well while objective testing shows impairment. Modern culture often rewards the performance of needing little sleep, as if sleep were a weakness. Sleep science argues the opposite. A brain that sleeps adequately is not lazy, it is maintained. The need for sleep is not a failure of ambition. It is a condition of having a brain complex enough to require nightly restoration. Napping can be helpful or harmful depending on timing, duration, and the person's sleep problem. A short early afternoon nap can improve alertness and mood. A long late day nap can reduce sleep pressure and make nighttime insomnia worse. For shift workers, planned naps can be protective. For people with untreated insomnia, irregular naps may perpetuate the cycle. Like many sleep tools, the nap is not universally good or bad. It is powerful because it interacts with the homeostatic system. Used well, it restores. Used poorly, it steals from the night. The siesta tradition in warmer climates likely reflects a combination of biology, environment, and social design. Human alertness often dips in the early afternoon, partly due to circadian rhythms and partly due to prior wake duration and meals. In hot climates, midday rest also avoids the most thermally stressful part of the day. Modern work schedules often flatten these rhythms, demanding constant productivity across hours when the body might naturally prefer a quieter state. The history of sleep is therefore also the history of labor, climate, architecture, light, and social values. Sleep has a moral history. Different cultures have praised early rising, condemned oversleeping, romanticized midnight creativity, feared idleness, honored dreams, or treated public sleep as shameful or acceptable. Industrial timekeeping made sleep a schedule problem. Electric light made night negotiable. Digital technology made wakefulness endlessly available, but biology did not disappear. The body still carries rhythms older than factories, phones, and alarm clocks. Every night, modern life negotiates with ancient physiology. Alarm clocks are useful, but they are also a sign that sleep is often being ended by obligation rather than biological completion. Waking naturally usually occurs when sleep pressure has dissipated and the circadian system has raised alertness. Waking to an alarm can occur in any stage, including deep sleep, producing inertia and stress. This does not mean alarms are bad. Modern life often requires them. But a life in which the alarm is always dragging the brain out of unfinished sleep may be a life built against the body's timing. The alarm solves a social problem. It does not solve the biological one. The subjective feeling of safety is one of sleep's deepest requirements. The nervous system does not easily surrender consciousness when it believes danger is near. This is why stress, conflict, unfamiliar environments, trauma, and insecurity can all disturb sleep. Sleep requires vulnerability. The body must trust the environment enough to reduce responsiveness. In this sense, sleep is not merely a private biological act. It is connected to housing, relationships, noise, financial stress, neighborhood safety, caregiving demands, and the emotional climate of a person's life. To sleep well is partly to be safe enough to disappear for a while. Co-sleeping, separate sleeping, shared rooms, family beds, solitary bedrooms, and partner sleep arrangements all vary across cultures and life stages. Sleeping beside another person can increase feelings of safety and bonding, but it can also introduce disturbance through movement, snoring, temperature mismatch, or different schedules. Some couples sleep better apart and feel guilty about it. Others sleep better together because the partner's presence regulates the nervous system. There is no single arrangement that is biologically ideal for everyone. The ideal is the arrangement that supports both restoration and relationship without turning sleep into a nightly battle. Dreams have been treated as messages from gods, visits from ancestors, prophecies, symptoms, meaningless noise, memory processing, emotional therapy, and simulations of threat. The science has not reduced them to one simple answer. Perhaps that is appropriate. Dreams may not have one function because the brain does not have one function at night. Some dreams may help process emotion. Some may reflect memory fragments. Some may be side effects of spontaneous activation. Some may rehearse social situations. Some may be meaningless in content, but meaningful in process. The dream is not a single code to crack. It is an event produced by a complex sleeping brain. The fact that consciousness disappears every night remains philosophically astonishing. A person lies down, loses the continuous sense of self, passes through hours of altered brain states, and returns in the morning with identity restored. The memories, name, language, relationships, worries, preferences, and sense of being the same person reassemble. Sleep is therefore not only a health behavior. It is a nightly interruption in consciousness that humans treat as ordinary because it happens so often. The ordinary nature of sleep hides its strangeness. Anesthesia and sleep are sometimes compared, but they are not the same. General anesthesia produces controlled unconsciousness through drugs that alter neural communication, but it does not reproduce the natural cycling architecture of sleep. A person under anesthesia is not receiving normal REM and NREM sleep in the ordinary sense. This is why long surgery does not count as restorative sleep. Sedation, coma, and sleep are all reduced responsiveness, but they are biologically different states. Sleep is not merely being unconscious. It is a structured, active condition with its own architecture. Coma also differs from sleep because coma lacks normal sleep-wake cycling and normal arousability. A sleeping person can usually be awakened by sufficient stimulation. A person in coma cannot. The distinction matters because outward stillness can be misleading. The brain state defines the condition more than the appearance of the body. Sleep looks like disappearance from the outside, but internally it is organized, reversible, and rhythmic. That reversibility is one of sleep's miracles. Every night the brain goes away from waking consciousness and then comes back. The relationship between sleep and memory also includes grief. After loss, sleep can become fragmented, dreams can become vivid, and the deceased may appear in dreams with startling realism. These dreams can comfort, disturb, or both. Grief changes the emotional priorities of the brain, and sleep becomes one of the places where the mind encounters absence. Research on bereavement sleep suggests that poor sleep can worsen emotional suffering, while dreams may sometimes help integrate the reality of loss. The sleeping brain does not avoid what matters. Often, it returns to it. Sleep and creativity have a long anecdotal history. Scientists, artists, composers, and writers describing solutions emerging after dreams or after a night of rest. The famous examples are not always historically clean, but the general principle has support. Sleep allows associative networks to reorganize without the rigid constraints of waking attention. A problem that feels stuck at night may feel different in the morning because the brain has explored connections outside deliberate control. Not every dream is genius, but creative cognition often benefits from periods in which the conscious executive system stops forcing the same path. The phrase sleep hygiene is common, but it can sound more trivial than it is. It includes light timing, caffeine, alcohol, temperature, regular wake time, wind-down routines, physical activity, and the reduction of conditioned arousal. These are not moral rules. They are ways of aligning behavior with physiology. Good sleep hygiene cannot cure every sleep disorder, especially not sleep apnea, narcolepsy, restless leg syndrome, or severe chronic insomnia, but it can remove friction from the system. It makes sleep easier to happen when the body is capable of it. Physical activity supports sleep partly by increasing sleep pressure, partly by improving mood, partly by regulating metabolism, and partly by strengthening circadian rhythms when it occurs at consistent times. Exercise also affects body temperature and stress chemistry. Very intense exercise close to bedtime can be stimulating for some people, while gentle movement may help others. Again, timing and individual response matter. The body is not a machine with identical settings across all people. Sleep science describes principles, but each nervous system has its own sensitivity. Sunlight, movement, social contact, and meals form what chronobiologists call zeitgebers, time givers. They help synchronize internal rhythms. Light is the strongest, but it is not the only one. A person living in dim light, eating irregularly, moving little, and working at unpredictable hours may have a circadian system receiving weak or conflicting signals. Sleep then becomes less stable. A stable day helps create a stable night. The night is not separate from the day. It is the day folding into another state. The sleeping brain's use of energy is surprisingly high. It does not shut down to save fuel in a simple way. Some regions reduce activity, others increase, and overall metabolism remains substantial. The point of sleep is therefore not mere energy conservation, though energy regulation may be part of the picture. Sleep is more like maintenance mode in an advanced system. Some external functions are reduced so internal processes can run. The machine is not off. It is inaccessible because the repair programs are active. One of the most comforting facts about sleep is that it is self-organizing. You cannot consciously perform deep sleep. You cannot order your hippocampus to replay the day. You cannot manually clear metabolic waste from the brain or coordinate sleep spindles with slow oscillations. The conscious mind is not the manager of these processes. It is the beneficiary. In a culture that teaches people to optimize and control everything, sleep remains a nightly reminder that some of the most important work of life happens only when control is released. The fear of not sleeping can become more disruptive than a single short night. The body can tolerate occasional poor sleep. Humans are resilient, and sleep varies naturally. But anxiety about sleep can turn bedtime into a performance test. The person begins scanning for signs of failure. Am I sleepy enough? Is my heart too fast? How many hours remain? What if tomorrow is ruined? This monitoring activates the very systems that prevent sleep. A healthier relationship with sleep often begins by reducing the drama around occasional wakefulness. A bad night is unpleasant, but it is not an emergency. The nervous system sleeps more easily when sleep is not treated as a crisis. Wakefulness in the night is not always pathological. Humans normally wake briefly between sleep cycles, often without remembering. Longer awakenings can occur after stress, alcohol, temperature changes, dreams, pain, or normal circadian shifts. The problem is often not the awakening itself, but the interpretation. If the person wakes and thinks, "This is normal," the body may return to sleep. If they think, "This is disaster," arousal rises. The same awakening can become a brief interval or the beginning of insomnia, depending partly on the meaning assigned to it. The future of sleep science will likely become more personalized. Instead of asking only how many hours people sleep, researchers increasingly examine sleep timing, variability, stage distribution, breathing, movement, temperature, light exposure, genetics, mental health, and social context. A teenager, a night shift nurse, an older adult with sleep apnea, a new parent, an athlete, and a person with trauma may all need different sleep solutions. The old advice of simply get 8 hours is useful, but incomplete. Sleep is not just quantity. It is architecture, rhythm, continuity, and fit with the life around it. Artificial intelligence and large-scale wearable data may transform sleep research, though with caution. Millions of nights of home sleep data can reveal patterns that small laboratory studies cannot, but consumer data is noisy and often indirect. The challenge will be separating meaningful physiological signals from measurement artifacts and marketing claims. The best future sleep science will combine laboratory precision with real-world scale, using technology not to make people anxious about perfect sleep, but to identify hidden disorders, improve schedules, and support healthier rhythms. The mystery of sleep persists because every answer opens another question. We know sleep supports memory, but not exactly how every memory is selected. We know dreams are linked to emotion, but not why consciousness takes such vivid forms. We know the glymphatic system is more active during sleep, but not the full relationship between sleep quality and neurodegeneration across a lifetime. We know circadian disruption harms health, but we are still learning how to design societies that respect biological time. Sleep is familiar enough to be ignored and mysterious enough to occupy neuroscience for centuries. Perhaps the deepest lesson of sleep science is humility. The waking mind likes to imagine itself as the center of the person, the planner, the narrator, the decision maker, the one who runs the body. But every night, the conscious mind withdraws, and the organism continues. The heart keeps its rhythm. The lungs continue. The immune system surveys. The brain reorganizes itself without asking permission. Memory is edited. Emotion is softened. Waste is cleared. Hormones rise and fall. The self that wakes in the morning is partly the product of work it did not witness. A good sleep story, then, is not a story about stopping. It is a story about invisible continuation. The person disappears from their own awareness, but life does not pause. The body turns inward. The brain changes modes. The day is taken apart and quietly rebuilt into memory, mood, readiness, and meaning. Sleep is the place where waking life is processed into the next version of itself. The sleeping brain also manages the balance between stability and flexibility. During the day, the mind must remain stable enough to recognize the world, remember goals, and act consistently. At night, the brain can loosen that stability. Associations become broader. Memories can be reactivated without immediate action. Emotional meanings can be revisited without the same external consequences. This may be one reason sleep supports psychological adaptation. A rigid brain would preserve the day exactly as it happened. A sleeping brain can transform the day, reduce its sharpness, extract its pattern, and place it within a larger story. The next morning, the world may be the same, but the mind meeting it is slightly reorganized. Sleep is also connected to the sense of bodily ownership. During waking, the brain constantly updates a model of the body, where the limbs are, what the skin feels, how the muscles are positioned, what sensations belong to the self, and what belongs to the outside world. During sleep, especially dreaming, this model becomes flexible. The dream body can run, fly, fall, speak, or move through impossible spaces while the physical body remains nearly still. Sometimes the dreamer has a body unlike the waking body. Sometimes the dreamer is simply a point of awareness. This shows that the body we experience is not only the physical body itself, but a neural model continuously built and revised by the brain. The loss of muscle tone in our EM sleep is generated by brainstem circuits that inhibit motor neurons in the spinal cord. This system is precise enough to prevent most dream enactment while leaving the muscles of breathing and eye movement active. It is an extraordinary compromise. The brain produces vivid internal experience, but the body is protected from acting it out. When this system fails, dreams can spill into movement. When the paralysis persists into waking, sleep paralysis occurs. When the dream imagery intrudes into wakefulness at the edge of sleep, hypnagogic hallucinations appear. These are not separate mysteries, but different failures of timing between systems that normally transition together. The first night in a new place often feels lighter and less restful, and laboratory studies have found evidence that the brain may remain more vigilant in unfamiliar sleeping environments. This first night effect is one reason sleep researchers often discard the first night of data in a sleep lab. The person is being observed, wired to sensors, and sleeping somewhere strange. The brain knows this, even if the person wants to relax. In evolutionary terms, a lighter first sleep in an unfamiliar place makes sense. Safety has not yet been established. The sleeping brain keeps part of its attention near the door. There is a particular kind of memory that sleep seems to help by extracting the gist rather than preserving the details. After learning many related examples, the brain may use sleep to detect what they have in common. This is important for concept formation. A child learning language does not memorize every sentence as separate. The brain extracts patterns. A musician does not store every practice repetition as an isolated event. The nervous system abstracts the structure of the movement. A scientist or artist wrestling with a problem may wake not with a complete answer, but with a changed sense of the pattern. Sleep turns examples into knowledge. The relationship between sleep and emotion is not only about reducing negative feelings. Sleep also helps preserve and integrate positive experiences. Joy, pride, gratitude, tenderness, and awe can be consolidated too. A meaningful conversation, a beautiful landscape, a small success, or a moment of affection may become more deeply woven into memory after sleep. The brain does not process only trauma and stress at night. It also keeps what is worth keeping. This matters because a life is not built only from solving problems. It is also built from remembering what was good enough to become part of the self. Sleep deprivation changes the way people evaluate risk. Tired brains can become more impulsive, more reward-seeking, and less sensitive to long-term consequences. The prefrontal systems that normally help weigh future outcomes become less effective, while reward and threat systems may become more reactive. This has implications far beyond feeling sleepy. Financial decisions, food choices, conflict, driving, medical judgment, and emotional conversations can all be affected. Many bad decisions are made not by a fundamentally different person, but by a temporarily under-restored nervous system trying to make complex choices with reduced regulation. The link between sleep and loneliness is also being explored. Poor sleep can make people withdraw socially, and sleep-deprived individuals may be perceived by others as less socially approachable. At the same time, loneliness itself can fragment sleep, perhaps because the nervous system feels less safe without a sense of social protection. This creates another loop. Poor sleep increases social difficulty. Social difficulty reduces perceived safety, and reduced safety worsens sleep. In this sense, sleep is not only private, it is connected to belonging. A socially safe life can support sleep, and good sleep can make social connection easier. Dreams sometimes contain people who are no longer present in waking life. Childhood friends, distant relatives, former partners, the dead. This is not supernatural in a scientific sense, but it is psychologically important. The sleeping brain has access to social memory networks, and it can simulate interaction with people from many periods of life. These dream meetings may feel emotionally real because the same brain systems that support attachment, recognition, and social meaning are active. A person can wake from such a dream with grief, comfort, confusion, or tenderness. Sleep allows the social world inside the mind to continue moving even when the external world is quiet. The silence of sleep is partly an illusion because the sleeping body is full of rhythm. Breath rises and falls. The heart changes pace across stages. Muscles twitch. The stomach and intestines continue their slow movements. Hormones pulse. Brain waves expand and contract. The immune system signals. Cells repair molecular damage. To an observer, a sleeper may appear still. At the physiological level, sleep is an orchestra of rhythms, many of them invisible, many of them ancient. The stillness is not emptiness. It is coordination. There is also a deep relationship between sleep and trust. To sleep is to stop guarding the world directly. It is to allow the senses to dim, the muscles to release, the narrative self to dissolve, and the unknown processes of the body to take over. Every night, the organism accepts a temporary loss of control because the alternative, endless wakefulness, is worse. This makes sleep one of the most ordinary forms of surrender in human life. It is not dramatic. It happens in bedrooms, on sofas, in trains, in hospital rooms, beside partners, beside children, alone. But biologically, it is profound. And perhaps this is why sleep has always carried symbolic weight. In literature and religion, sleep has been compared to death, healing, forgetting, innocence, escape, prophecy, and renewal. Science does not remove those meanings. It gives them a body. Sleep really is a small disappearance. It really does heal. It really does alter memory. It really does bring images from beyond deliberate control. It really does return the person changed, even if only slightly, by processes that happened outside awareness. The old metaphors were not precise, but they were responding to something real. So the science of sleep is not only a list of facts about stages and hormones. It is a map of a nightly transformation. Wakefulness gathers experience. Sleep reorganizes it. Wakefulness exposes the body to demands. Sleep repairs and recalibrates. Wakefulness fills the brain with sensation, decision, social meaning, and effort. Sleep reduces the outer world so the inner systems can do their work. And that is why learning about sleep while becoming sleepy has such a quiet symmetry. The subject is not distant from you. It is arriving in real time. The adenosine has been rising through the day. The circadian system has been reading the light. The body temperature is preparing to fall. The thalamus is preparing to close its gates. The cortex is preparing to shift from the fragmented activity of waking into the slow waves, spindles, and strange bright landscapes of the night. The science of sleep is still relatively young. The discovery of REM sleep in 1953, the development of the polysomnograph for recording multiple physiological signals simultaneously during sleep, and the formulation of the two-process model in 1982 have all occurred within living memory. The molecular clock was not characterized until the 1990s. The glymphatic system was not described until 2013. The full architecture of sleep stages, their functions, and their interactions with the rest of the body's physiology is still being worked out, with new discoveries appearing regularly. What has been established clearly is that sleep is not optional, not a primitive state of disengagement from reality, and not merely the absence of wakefulness. It is an active, structured, biologically critical process on which the functioning of the waking brain entirely depends. Every night, without fail, the brain prepares to do this work. The adenosine accumulates, the circadian signal drops, the brainstem circuits shift their neuromodulatory balance, the thalamic gates close, and the remarkable process that you are about to enter one more time begins to unfold. You do not have to understand it for it to work. You simply have to let it happen. Sleep well. Good night.